Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. Today is our NFL team preview as we preview the Philadelphia Eagles out of the NFC East. If you like the video today, please comment and share it. I'm your host, Vincent Turner, and joining me always is the legend. I call him the superstar, two-time All-American at Florida State University, first-round draft pick of the Atlanta Falcons in the 1981 NFL Draft. My man out of Delray Beach, Florida. He always tell me South Florida best where they got all the best football players. My man, Mr. Bobby Butler. So, if you like the video today, please comment and share this. We're going to break down the Philadelphia Eagles out of the NFC East. So, Mr. Butler, what do you like about the Philadelphia Eagles this season?
Well, their head coach, Coach Doug Peterson, is starting his fifth season. The last 3 years, Vincent, he's been a playoff team. He's been a playoff coach. And we know in 2017, they won their first Super Bowl, And so they've been to the playoffs the last two seasons since then, but they've been kind of mediocre. I mean, the year they won the Super Bowl, they were 13-3 regular season and won all three of their playoff games. For the last 2 years, they've been 9-7. Just barely getting into playoffs, but yet and still they're making it. So I'm going to say that the door is not closed on this Eagles franchise as far as being a contender. The door is still open. Now, we all know that it always begins with the quarterback. Now, Carson Wentz is a franchise quarterback. He's entering his fifth year, right? Last season, he started all 16 games. But in the playoffs against the Seahawks, he had a concussion early in the first quarter, right? So his MO so far is he's injury prone. So, this past draft, they drafted a kid who is the future of this franchise, in my opinion, in Mr. Jalen Hurts. So I hope that Carson Wentz can come in and still be strong so Jalen can learn some things from him. But they had to draft someone because, like I said, Carson Wentz is always in the training room for one reason or the other. So that being said, I think they're good at the quarterback position, right? Their running back room, they're young, but solid. They pulled up a guy off of the practice squad last year named Boston Scott. And he came in and played well. Not only did he play well, he was like NFC East rookie player of the week the last week against the offensive player of the week against the Giants, the finale of the season last year. But they also have this guy named Miles Sanders. And Miles Sanders put up rookie of the year numbers last year. So he's an explosive player. So I think with both of those guys, I think they got a good running back room, right? And so when we look at their wide receivers, now they're in a whole rebuilding mode with this group. Why? Because first of all, three-time Pro Bowler Deshaun Jackson, he's been hurt the last 2 years. All right. And then the big guy, the big target, Alshon Jeffries, he's been out. He's on the PUP list right now. Okay. So with those two guys, we don't know if they're going to ever come back or when they're going to come back. They drafted three young receivers. They started with this guy named Jalen Reagor in the first round, right? Now, I assume that he would come in and be a starter immediately. But he just got hurt in training camp. So now they're already, digging into their depth chart, right? And so, but you still have draft choice. I think he's a fifth-round pick, John Hightower. He's a 4.4 40 guy. And then you also have Quez Watkins out of Southern Miss, who's a 4.3 guy. All right. So they got some potential right there. And then also Greg Ward is coming back. He played well at the end of the year last year. You can play him in the slot. But let's not get it twisted about this team. They're not led by their wide receiver group. They're led by their tight end room. Their tight ends, listen, three-time Pro Bowler, Zach Ertz. He's a monster in the room. That guy has caught more passes in one season than any tight end in the history of the game. Now, we all know we got some great tight ends in the game right now. But this guy a year or so ago had 116 catches in one season, I think in the 2018 season. And then along with him, he's a 3-time Pro Bowler, you got Dallas Goedert, who put up some good numbers. So with this duo, last year they combined for 146 catches, over 1,500 yards, and 11 TDs. They are led by their tight ends on this roster, on the offensive roster. But here's the good thing. Every good quarterback needs a good tight end or a pair of them. And they have tight ends on this roster. So they're good there, right? And that's going to help shore up that receivers room. And then the O-line. Their O-line is good. They've been stable for several years. Jason Keeley, Isaac Samoli, Jordan Melitai, Jason Peters, Lane Johnson. They have great chemistry on the offensive line. So from an offensive standpoint, Vincent, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are ready to do some things. They're not going to miss a beat. Now, I know you say, well, maybe, they don't have big play wide receivers. Well, I tell y'all this every week, almost every week. Wide receivers and running backs are a dime a dozen. They got one of their running backs off the practice squad last year. So you can find guys like that to play. So those guys will step up. From a defensive standpoint, they run a 4-3 defense. The defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, he's got some talent in his front seven. The Eagles like to spend money in their front seven, in the trenches and on the edge. This is how you build a football team, y'all, with your upfront people. That's the foundation of your team. They spent, Vincent, over $33 million on those guys, right? And then, just on the edge, the interior linemen, defensive linemen, they spent about $14 million on them this offseason. In other words, they're gearing up to do something special again. I like that, right? D tackle, Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, a 5-time Pro Bowler, Malik Jackson, a Pro Bowler in 2017, right? Now, they're all interior defensive linemen. But what he's getting ready to do, defense coordinator Jim Schwartz, he's getting ready to put those 3 guys on the field at the same time. So they're going to take this 4-3 defense, Vincent, and do some special things with it, right? That's going to be a lot of manpower up front, I'm telling you right now, right? And so you add that, and on the edge, Jackson, you got Brandon Graham, who's been an All-Pro. You got Derek Barnett. He's young, and he's ready for the big time, right? And at linebacker, you got Nathan Gary. He's a 3-down linebacker. And what that means is he don't have to come off the field in passing situations. He a full-time linebacker. So that means he's very athletic, all right? And then you have Alex Singleton. He's a solid linebacker. But then you got my man from LSU, former Atlanta Falcon, Mr. Duke Riley. Duke is going to man that middle linebacker spot, Vincent. He's going to bring the wood, the SEC, up in the NFC East. I like that. And then you got Davion Taylor and Sean Bradley will add depth to the linebacker room. And then when you talk about their secondary, you got an all-pro corner in Darius Slay. He's a shutdown corner, right? And then you have Avonte Maddox that's going to play on the opposite side of him. He got experience last year. And then you got Nikel Roby Coleman, who's going to play in that slot. Y'all heard about him a couple years ago when he interfered with that guy in New Orleans. That's the guy. But he's a proven nickel back. So he'll add to the value of that secondary. And then at the safety, Rodney McLeod. He's going to take over Michael Jenkins' leadership spot. All right. And so Jalen Mills is going to be at the other safety. Their secondary is good. All right. Their defense is good. Hey, listen, nobody ever counts the Eagles as doing anything in the playoffs, even the year they won it all, Vincent. Because in the NFC East, there's only one team that everybody talks about, and that's your team, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Dallas Cowboys got all the toys, but this Eagles team is built on blue-collar football play, and they're going to go to work. That's what I have on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, Brother Butler, you would have to put it out there that I am a Cowboys fan. And I don't know why you did that today, but hey, the Cowboys have always been the team every year coming into the season. It's a team that's always going to be potentially get to the Super Bowl, but that hasn't happened since 1995. So we're not going to go down that road. But I'm going to tell you about the Philadelphia Eagles. Number one, I'm going to start with Howie Roseman, their GM, and their head coach, Doug Peterson. Excellent. Great A for both of them. Mm-hmm. When that game ended last year against Seattle, they knew the following day what they needed. They needed to get younger, they needed to get faster, and they really needed to get more players into their system that they know that far as this league, the teams that are winning at a high level, the Cowboys, the 49ers, they're able to be very explosive in the passing game. But when I think about the Eagles, Carson Wentz, you mentioned a key point. He's injury prone. Mm-hmm. But if he's not injury prone, to me, he's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the game today. What he did last year, being able to play in a 16-game season, injuries at the wide receiver position, injuries at the running back position, his tight ends being the main key of their offense, and then their defense had a lot of injuries too. For him to wheel that football team into the playoffs was unbelievable. And to me, I'm going to say it again, without the injuries, Carson Wentz to me is a top 3 quarterback right now in the National Football League. As we say, he is that guy. Mm-hmm. He's got something that can nobody take. He can win with less, and he proved it last year. Mm-hmm. But that being said, look what the Eagles done in the offseason. They say, you know what? Offensively, we got to get more explosive. Deshaun Jackson is injury prone, but he can still run. We don't know how much we're going to get out of him. Right. Alshon Jeffries gave him a lot over the last 2 years, but he's injury prone. And he's lost a step or two. But the first thing that impressed me is saying that young man out of the University of Texas. He's been injured out there in San Francisco, but Marquise Goodman can really fly. Go look at his Olympic tape and track, 4.3 guy. They got Jalen Reagor, another 4.4 guy at TCU, based on the fact he is injured, but he can fly. Then they got John Hightower out of Boise State, who can take the top off of defense. Then I ain't mentioned the fastest one out of the whole bunch. He's out of Mississippi. I tell you all the time, by way of Southern Mississippi, in the state of Mississippi, it's something in the water down in the state. Walter Payton, Jerry Rice, Steve McNair, I don't have to say no more. And when you look at this young man, Mr. Watkins, he might be the best out of the bunch. Then they go on the defensive side of the ball and they get speed out. We know what type of player Kavon Wallace is. Look at the Clemson tape. Can play in the slot. He can play strong safety. He can do it all. Then they got a young man out of Colorado who's a 4.39 linebacker, my man, Mr. Davon Taylor. Go look at his tape out there in the Pac-12, all over the field making tackles. So they've gotten very, very fast on the side of the football. Now you look at Carson Wentz coming into this season with speed now to go with them tight ends, Ertz and Gobert. Ooh-wee. Then their offensive line is still stacked. They got 4 out of 5 starters returning. Don't worry about Andre Dillard getting lost for the season last week. They bringing back the man that went to the University of Arkansas, who came in this league as a tight end, by the way, the Buffalo Bills, Jason Peters, who's probably been one of the best left tackles over the last 12 years. So they're going to be all right on the offensive line. All that speed on offense now, you got Carson Wentz if he can stay healthy, but we all know the defense wins in this league. And Philadelphia has always been known, whether they're bad, good, great, they've always had great defenses. It's almost like when you think about their defense, you think about that music scene in the 70s when they had that great run, when they had Teddy Pendergrass. They had Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes, Patti LaBelle, okay, Billy Paul, Miles J. Look at their defense now. You name all the players they got. Barnett, Malik Jackson, Fletcher Cox, another Mississippi guy out of Yazoo.
That's right.
My man, who can really really take the top off Brandon Graham. I'm surprised you didn't mention, man, I'm going to get so upset on the show. I'm surprised you did not put your boy who's coming up, who was a fourth-round pick a couple of years ago from your school, Florida State, Mr. Josh Sweat, that they really getting excited about in training camp. But most of all, what I like, they got another Mississippi guy, Mississippi State. He came in the league as a second-round pick, was very upset. Went over there and played lights out in Detroit for 5 years, and then everybody started saying, oh, he might be the best corner in the game, Darius Slay.
That's right.
And that defense was reminding me of that 91 defense. And that's when the Cowboys went good then, when the Eagles used to beat up on the Cowboys. This defense coming into this year's like that 91 defense. And to the Eagle fans, you know who I'm talking about, so I'm going to tell the nation about that 91 defense. The young man out of Brooksville, Florida, Jerome Brown, bless his soul. The young man out of Chattanooga, Howard, Reggie White, bless his soul. Clyde Simmons, William Thomas out of Texas A&M, Brian Evans out of Arizona, the legend Seth Jordan, who was a beast. Eric Allen, you should know something about him, that outstanding corner from Arizona State, and Mike Golick out of Notre Dame. And we know how that defense played.
Absolutely.
But if Ryan had left, Rick Kotite had took over the head coach, but that defense beat up on people. And this is how this Eagles defense is constructed for this year. So by no means, I love the Dallas Cowboys. I still think they're the team in the division to get out of the playoffs. But this Eagles team, if Carson Wentz is healthy, they're going to be making the noise about not only challenging for the NFC East, but we can start talking about Super Bowl because they got a phenomenal head coach in Doug Peterson, the GM Howard Roseman, and this NFL roster they have is very talented. So that being said, to the great man Teddy Pendergrass, my favorite entertainer, don't sleep on the Eagles because it might be a TKO. If you like the final words, Brother Butler.
Well, I like them. I see them going on the bad end. Now they got a tough schedule now. They do have a rough schedule, but I see them 10-6 or 11-5 this season. They're going to be a contender again. And, you know, everybody's dream is to get to the playoffs as healthy as possible. And then when you get in, anything is possible. They proved that in 2017. So I like them. They'll be a playoff contender team.
If you liked the video today, please come in and share it. We surely thank you for supporting 100 Yards of Football. It's the great Teddy Pendergrass. TKO. Don't sleep on the Philadelphia Eagles because this is a really good football team that's going to be very dangerous in the 2020 season. God bless and have a wonderful weekend.